Well, welcome everyone. Can everybody hear okay? Fantastic. Well, thanks for coming to the presentation today. My name is Matt Vance. I do not work for the refrigeration company, but I do know Bob Vance. He's a great guy. And yeah, I appreciate you guys coming. So before we get started, I figured maybe just having a little context of who I am and the company that I work for can give you just a little bit of a lens from the message that you're receiving today. So I grew up in Utah County in Spanish Fork, went to Utah State and stayed up there. I work at Maloof. It's a bedding manufacturer. We make pillows and sheets and mattresses and everything you need to sleep comfortably. My dad is actually Canadian. And my mom is from Arkansas, so I'm redneck Canadian, kind of an interesting mix. And I love corny jokes, dry jokes. Usually my humor is very dry unless there's rain in the forecast. If you want to hear a really good dad joke, this is probably one of my favorites. So when does a corny joke become a dad joke? It's when the punchline becomes apparent, right? There's a change that happens there. So. I have 3 awesome little daughters and an amazing wife, so everything is mermaids and unicorns at our house. It's definitely magical for sure. So that's a little bit about me and about Maloof. I've been at Maloof for about 5 years. When I started, there were about 40 employees. Now we're at 450, so it's a very fast-growing company. It's really exciting to be a part of the explosive growth. And so what we're going to be talking about today, we'll kind of go through that experience of what we've done up in Logan. So the goals of today, I'd like to share some perspective regarding the impact of employer reviews. And then I'll give you 5 very specific things that you can take away right after today to get started and improve your reputation. And then, of course, we want to be answering questions along the way. Okay, so first we're going to start off with a little marketing lesson. Who in here uses reviews when they buy things? Lots of people. Okay, so what do you reference reviews for? What type of purchase decisions? Anybody? Amazon. So pretty much products. What was that? Car shopping. Okay. Food. That's a big one. Your food's very important. It needs to be 5 stars, right? No. Okay. Contractors. Good. So a lot of people use reviews. In fact, about 97% of consumers will reference reviews when making buying decisions. Now, the thing that's crazy is not only are we referencing reviews, but we believe them to a very high degree. In fact, 85% of consumers believe those reviews as much as a personal recommendation. You know, we just believe that, well, it's the voice of the entire community, so it can't be wrong, right? So I'm just going to go with the majority. Now, there's another study that went through the trustworthiness of different professionals. I thought this study was really interesting. At the very top, the most trustworthy profession was being a doctor. About 49% of consumers trust doctors. The second spot was firefighters at 48%. Now, if you go all the way down towards the bottom, salespeople and marketers were only trusted at 3%. And then you have politicians at 1%. Kind of crazy. Now, HR professionals were not on the chart, so you guys are off on one end or the other. You'll have to decide. But the thing that's crazy is, imagine, someone trying to sell you something. You don't believe them because you think, well, they're just trying to make the biggest margin on this sale. They want the commission. They're trying to influence me, right? It's one person's opinion. But as soon as that salesperson changes their pitch, instead of saying, I think you should buy this one, they say, well, this one is actually the top rated and best seller out of all the options. All of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, I can go with that. Now, this is something that's really crazy. So if you have a salesperson trying to influence you just personally, they have a 3% influence on you. If they're leveraging third-party validation or reviews, all of a sudden their trust skyrockets to 85%. So that's an increase of 2,833.33%. That's a lot. So you want to leverage reviews in your when you're trying to influence people. Awards function the same way. If you want to say something amazing about your business and you're just like, we're awesome, you should work here, that doesn't really seem genuine. But if you say, we've been nominated as the 8th best place to work in the nation by Glassdoor, which is true of Maloof, we're the highest ranked employer in the state of Utah, all of a sudden it doesn't sound pretentious or like I'm trying to twist your arm because someone else said it, not me. It'd be the same as me coming up here and reading my introduction and saying how amazing I am versus someone else reading it. It feels different when there's an element of third-party validation. So let's talk about how reviews impact the bottom line, how profitability can be impacted by reviews. A 1-star change in a Yelp rating equates to a 5 to 9% difference in gross revenue for a business, just indefinitely. So if you're a local business owner and you experience a 1-star drop in your star rating, you will just take a hit on your gross revenue, and it's an indefinite impact because all of a sudden you're lower than other people. Another statistic is one 1-star Yelp review will cost a business an estimated 30 customers. So think twice next time you just leave a 1-star review for something really petty. On Amazon, the difference in sales between a 4.2-star product and a 4.3-star product is literally 100%, and it happens in real time. Can you imagine that? Like, you're selling your products online, all of a sudden you go from 4.2 to 4.3, and now your supply chain is affected because you're going to run out of inventory. You're selling at twice the pace. Or the flip side of it is all of a sudden your sales cut in half, and now you're a small business looking at, do we need to let someone go? There's an extreme impact that happens with reviews, and it's very real. It happens in real time, and I've seen it time and time again. Okay, so now we're going to talk about some relationships that happen with quantity of reviews, and we'll also look at star ratings. So has anyone heard of Bizarre Voice? They're a review management company. They specialize in review syndication, or they'll collect reviews on one site and push it to retail sites like Walmart.com, Overstock, and other sites. So there's a law of diminished returns here. When you go from 0 reviews to 1 review, you actually increase your sales rate by 10%. So if you were to buy a review, you would have to pay a commission to the person who posted that review of 10% indefinitely for all sales. Like, that's literally how big of an impact that first review has on your sales. By the time you get to 10 reviews, you're up about 20%, and then you've got this curve that goes up to where by the time you have 200 reviews, you've experienced about a 44% lift in sales from when you first launched. Now, this graph shows us the relationship between the increase in star ratings and sales. The size of the circles just shows how many units are sold of a specific product. As you can see, not very many sales are happening till you get to about 4 stars. This was on Amazon, by the way. Then from about 4 to 4.7, that's where all of your major sales volumes happen. But from here to here, we talked about that 50% or that 100% doubling of sales. That's right here and right here. There's your 50% representation or 100% representation. What's interesting is, though, as you go close to 5 stars, your sales actually drop off. That's because the reviews may be believed to be faked or manipulated or too good to be true. You lose authenticity when everything is perfect. There's actually a measure of negativity that is very desirable and helps increase sales. So between these two graphs, knowing, as reviews go up, sales go up, and as a star rating goes up, but not too high, sales go up, I can pretty much tell you which products are going to be most profitable to run promotions on Amazon. It would be a product that has at least 100 reviews or 200, somewhere on that higher end, and then has between 4.3 and 4.7 stars. That'll display at 4.5 stars. That product will have the highest multiplier on a promotion compared to other products. So really what it comes down to is this one phrase: perception is reality. What we perceive becomes our truth. What we read in reviews is what we believe. Now, there's definitely a skewed level of control, considering that only 1 to 3% of consumers even leave reviews, but 97% of people are using them for their buying decisions. It doesn't matter that it's a disproportionate sample size. It's what's available. And so that determines the perceptions of shoppers. So has anyone heard of Lee Atwater? Lee Atwater, he was the presidential campaign manager for George W. Bush Sr., and he fundamentally changed the way that presidential campaigns are run in the US. Instead of taking a side on a social issue, he would pose a question and then measure what people believed and then would take the side of the majority. Perception is reality. He was going with what people perceived. Now that's regardless of if one side was right or wrong or better than the other. It was going with what relative truth people had. So now let's talk about how the impact of reviews transitions to the employer space. Well, 92% of Americans believe that reading reviews and ratings of their employer is critical. Think about this. The relationship between a shopper and a seller is very similar to the relationship between a job seeker and an employer. Job seekers are shopping for a job, right? Like, that's literally what's happening. Now, nearly 1 in 3 declined jobs in the US are based upon negative reviews. So whatever is on the internet is definitely being referenced. And then 50% of candidates say they wouldn't want to work for a company that has a bad reputation. Okay, so now we're going to take one step back and talk about the impact of culture in general. So there is a very real connection between profitability and happy employees. Glassdoor's economic team, if you want to follow them on LinkedIn or just subscribe to their email, it's incredible. They perform some of the most robust economic analysis out there of the labor market. This one is especially interesting. They looked at public companies that are on the best place to work list and their stock performance over a 6-year time period compared to the S&P 500. And what they found is if you put $1 in these best place to work, like a conglomerate portfolio of the best place to work companies, you would make over 115% more than just investing in the S&P 500. So that's like legitimate investing advice. Companies that care about their employees make more money. So if you only care about having a good reputation and having a good culture purely for the financial aspect, it makes sense. Now, at Maloof, we genuinely care about our employees. There's a deeper level of care than just the bottom line, but it's very real. Of course, that spills over to productivity and turnover and even customer satisfaction scores. So now we're going to watch just a little short clip about Maloof culture. This is a 60-second video where we announced internally at Maloof that we had been ranked a top 10 best place to work in the nation. All right, so how did that feel watching that? What comes to mind? Fun? One of our values is make it fun, so we do take that serious. Anything else? Well, we definitely do have a lot of fun. We make pillows and mattresses, so it's certainly a cush job, but you can definitely know that it's not all play. We do work really hard, so you can put that rimmer to rest. We definitely care about having a good time, but we also want to make sure that we're being very purposeful and strategic with planning experiences that lead to higher levels of happiness. So when you talk about company culture as a big picture strategy, there are lots of pieces of the pie. If you heard Jake Neely speak in the opening keynote yesterday, he talked about the Malou Foundation and our efforts to fight human trafficking and child sex exploitation. That's a piece of our culture strategy. It's the giving piece. It's the charitable piece. Now, you may have another piece that's focused on recognition and motivation. Another piece about inclusion and diversity. The part that we're talking about today is the outward-facing piece, the reputation piece. So we won't be able to go through everything of a full, robust company culture strategy, but I would encourage you to do your research there and look up some articles. If you want a really good book to read, there's one by the CEO of Kronos, Aaron Ian, and it's called Work Inspired, and he talks about how they've codified or institutionalized their culture. Okay, so what is the employer reputation plan? That one piece of the culture strategy. Well, at its core, it's the strategies that you deploy to shape the employees' and job seekers' perceptions of you as an employer. Now, again, this is perception control, right? It's controlling the beliefs, maybe not the absolute truths of you as an employer, but who does this plan impact? It's not just the employers, it's not just the job seekers. You also have to consider the customers. They're going to be looking at what's out there about you on the internet, as well as partners and investors. You better believe if I'm going to invest millions of dollars in using your services or partnering with you, that I'm going to research how you treat your employees. It's just a fact. And if you go look it up, you will find lots of articles that talk about that impact. Okay, so now we're on to our 5 action items. The very first one, you want to set up your employer review profiles. Do any of these look familiar? So these are all places where people could formulate their perceptions about you as an employer. Glassdoor is certainly, I would say, the most important, followed by Indeed. Both of those sites are top 100 websites in the US, according to Alexa. Glassdoor has about 900,000 employers on site. Comparably is another company review site that's similar to Glassdoor. It's just smaller. They have about 50,000 employers. Both Fairy Godboss and InHerSite are similar to Glassdoor in that they're employer review sites, but they're specific through the lens of female friendliness in the workplace. Google and Facebook are kind of secondary tier important sites pertaining to the employer reputation. They're more general review locations. You may have customers, employees, partners, or anyone review you on those 2 sites. And Yelp, I would actually discourage against using Yelp. I personally do not like their business model. I feel like it kind of pits you against their audience. So I've actually removed our profile of Yelp. So these are places that you want to be conscious of. If you want to take a picture of this slide, that gives you the URLs of where to go set up your profiles. Maloof uses InHerSite instead of Fairy Godboss because they both perform the same general function, but we like the branding and functionality of InHerSite better. Everyone got that? I see lots of phones, so great. Okay, so after you've opened your accounts, you need to commit, well, actually, you should commit to maintaining it before you open them. If you open it and you don't plan to actually dive into this and maintain your profiles, it's probably better that you just wait as long as possible until someone reviews you. If someone tries to review you and you don't have a profile, they can actually create it for you, and it will just exist passively without you knowing about it. So I would highly recommend you just jump in with 2 feet and own your reputation. So you want to think about the different functions of these profiles. At their core, they're social media sites, but there are multiple pieces to the puzzle. So you can post on all of those sites, just like you post to Facebook. You can post to Google. You can post to Glassdoor. You can post to Indeed on your career page. All of them have that same functionality. You'd probably want your copy team involved to make sure that what you're posting looks clean, and also responding to reviews. As far as the general strategy of the pages, if you have like a brand manager that you want to be involved, and interpreting feedback, someone that's your resident Excel wizard is probably the best person to have there. And throughout all, you'd want the HR piece to be involved. Yeah, question? Yeah.
What are your thoughts about responding to reviews? I've just seen it mixed online where it's great for some companies, but then it's really to the detriment of other companies because now employees are just using it as a way to like vent online instead of going directly internal. So
Totally.
What have you seen? What are your thoughts?
So that's actually one of our action items, responding to reviews. One other thing that I haven't got to quite yet, but I'm actually writing a book about review management. I've personally written about 1,200 pages worth of review responses. So that's about 2 Harry Potter books. J.K. Rowling could have been 3 times as better as me at writing at reviews than she is, but she obviously chose her path and it worked out. But yeah, so responding to reviews is critically important, and I'm going to give you some takeaways that are the result of many years of research to help you really nail it. So thank you for that question. Okay, so after you've got your profile set up, be patient. It's not going to be overnight that you see magic happening. I started the Maloof Glassdoor profile in the summer of 2016. We got a whopping 20 profile views in a month. That was amazing. And as you can see, it slowly climbed. We had an entire year before we even got, up to 1,000. And then you can see the climb, and then this is when we hit the top 10 spot on the best place to work list. So you need to be patient, but you need to be consistent. Yep, yeah, that's Glassdoor. So all of these sites will have an employer like analytics back profile where you can see, your view counts and candidate analytics about who's looking at your profile, which is really cool. Can you imagine having exact demographics of who wants to apply at your company based on, gender and age and education level and all that? It's built into to these portals. So as you get more reviews on your profiles, you will be equipped with more information about who your target audience is, which is pretty cool. Okay, so the next action item, ask for reviews. Does this make anyone nervous?
No. We did like an initiative.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So you ask some employees?
Yeah, well, so how we structured it was we just had it open for one day. And if our total reviews grew to like 20 reviews was the first count, everybody in the company got a crumble.
Cool.
And if it went to 40, we did a snow cone truck for everybody.
Sweet, I like it.
And then if it went to 60 reviews, so we only have 100 employees. No, we had 80 at the time. We had 80 employees. So if we got 60 reviews, it was like catered lunch.
Nice.
Right.
That's awesome. So kind of a tiered
Right,
thing.
exactly. But we didn't want to be like paying for reviews. We didn't want to say, if you give us a review, we'll give you a gift card.
Totally.
So it was more like a team effort.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Everybody each other.
Yeah.
Post a review. So we did the snow cone truck, and everybody liked it. It was fun. But the problem with Glassdoor is like it doesn't post. It takes like 24 hours.
Yeah, there's a delay. Yeah.
So it was like, oh, we didn't make it. Wait, we did.
Yep.
Everybody.
Yeah, that's because the reviews go through their verification process. So the thing about incentivizing reviews that's very interesting is there are legal ways to do it. There are also illegal ways to do it. And there are ways that can be against terms of service. So for Glassdoor, you're probably good. I wouldn't worry about this, but it is against the terms of service and some of the other review sites. So one of the ways that I would do is just, get what you get and keep asking routinely. So that's a great first push, and then you'll ask a little bit later on. So there are clear benefits to asking though, because what you're doing is you're demonstrating transparency to employees that you want feedback, and you're also you're acquiring content on your profiles. So the perception of your company as an employer is only as good as the content or the reviews that are being written about you. So you want more reviews. Now, in general, the extremes, the very positives and the very negatives, are self-selecting. If you have a way horrible experience at a restaurant, you have now been given a motive to write that negative review. If you had an exceptional positive experience, the waiter gave you a free appetizer or whatever, then all of a sudden you have a motive for leaving a review. The people in the middle don't really have a motive, and so that's why you have such low review rates. But if you ask them, all of a sudden there's that social awareness of, okay, someone's actually asking, they want the feedback, so now, my extreme limits kind of creep in a little bit, and so now if it's this extreme or this extreme, now I'm willing to write a review. So you want to ask, it will help you, and on average, most people do leave positive reviews. The average star rating on Amazon is about a 4.25, and so you're more likely to get positives if you ask, on average. So here's some do's and don'ts. Again, this is coming from about 4 years of trial and error. So some things that I would say you want to do is you want to ask small groups on a rotation. Now, if you were to go look at Amazon, for example, and there were 100 reviews and they were all written 1 year ago and they were written within 1 week time frame, your BS radar probably goes off. You're like, that looks weird. Okay, I don't know if I trust this, right? You would naturally expect that unit to be sold and for people to be using it in reviews to just kind of come in over time. So that's the reason why you want to ask a small group just continuously, so you get a more natural looking flow of reviews on your profile. You do want to make those requests randomized. You don't want to cherry pick only the happy employees. That's not a good strategy. It can surely backfire, especially if someone were to ask. So how do you decide who you ask to do a review? I've never gotten asked. Well, you're not on our happy list. That's not going to go good, right? You want to make that request template-based so that it can be equal, and just to facilitate easier and a lower impact or lower input on your time. You do want to track who you've asked, and that's just because you can ask people again. On Glassdoor, you're eligible to leave a new review of the same employer every 12 months. That's because your experience at an employer changes, right? Maybe something happened and now you really like it, or you really don't like it, and so you should have the opportunity to write to that experience. Now, you do want to offer support to employees. So our templated request, which you'll see on the next slide, it does say hey, if you have any questions or anything you want to talk about with us first, feel free to email us here or come talk to HR. So you do want to give people that option, and you do want the request to be perceived as very important. So we mark the email as important, and we include our CEO, Sam Maloof, in the CC line of every one of those requests. And we also do a scheduled follow-up just to get more people to participate. So we do a 5-day delay on our follow-ups for the requests. So on the don't side, so you don't want to ask just the happy employees. You don't want to tell people what to say. You want to just say, we want to know honestly how you feel. We just are looking to get better. Please provide us your feedback. As far as tracking, it's good to track who you've sent invites to, but not who you think posted what. That's just going to get frustrating for you. And really, even if you figure out, so-and-so posted this negative review, what are you going to do? Can't you can you even do anything? Well, I would say you shouldn't unless they're, saying something that may be illegal or something of that nature. Incentivizing, you can incentivize reviews of certain platforms like Google and Facebook. It is allowable. To be compliant with the FTC, you have to ask the people to state that they were offered an incentive in return, and then you would be compliant. But on Glassdoor and the other profiles, I just ask and get what you get. Okay, so here's the template that we currently use. You've got the link in there. You want to make it as easy as possible. You're customizing it. The person's name gets added there. You've got the HR contact if they'd like to talk about something instead of post a review. Reinforcing our culture. We care about your experiences here at Maloof and the employee experience team. So that's one example. And then you'll actually get reviews. It gets super exciting. You can see that your review count is going to go up. So we've got our Glassdoor page there. Here we've got Indeed and Comparably and in her site. So it's going to be really exciting to see the numbers go up. Okay, so here's the next one. So on to the question up here about responding. You do want to respond. So let's talk about why. If you respond to your reviews, you are instantly increasing the positivity of your employer perception. 62% of job seekers have an improved perception of an employer who responds to reviews. And a lot of people expect you to respond nowadays. Has anyone in here ever posted a review and expected a reply? I know I have. It's definitely something that's more and more common. Okay, so benefits. Let's go through a real life scenario. So Maloof has several different brands. One of our brands is called Linen Spa. So here's a review that Linen Spa got. 1 star, does not work at all, waste of money. Here's our company response. Sherry, we apologize that this particular item did not work for you. Can you tell us how it's being used? We're happy to help. We can also assist you with a product return if you prefer. Email us at cs@linenspa. Thanks, Linen Spa. So that's a good response, but the power comes from this other reply from another shopper. They said, the response to this review is what was helpful for me. The company seems very willing to back up their product, which gives me purchasing confidence. There have been multiple examples of this throughout the reviews. That's a perfect example of why you should respond to reviews. You're in essence building credibility and trust among your shoppers. In the employer space, it would be the job seekers, but you're also impacting that entire other audience pool. Now, this next slide is really interesting. Okay, so first question, who's your target audience when you write a review? It seems a little counterintuitive, but it's not the person who wrote the review. I'll give you a little example. On Amazon, some of our products, a single product on Amazon will receive 60,000 views in a day. So if I get a negative review, am I going to write and cater my message to that one person who they've already gone through the purchase cycle and they're just disappointed? That's like a lost cause. Of course, I'm going to make sure that my message is tailored to the 60,000 daily viewers. That's the approach that you should take when responding to reviews and with Facebook posts or any other type of interaction with your contributor where the whole audience on the internet is watching. Think of it like you're on a talk show, you're having a conversation with this person over here, but you care about your TV ratings, about your audience, and about what they think about this interaction. So the next question is, how many reviews do you respond to? You do not respond to all of them. Now, this study right here is from Cornell University. They looked at the impact on the TripAdvisor score from brands that were responding to reviews on their TripAdvisor listing. What they found was their TripAdvisor score went up by a multiple of over 2 as you got to about 40% review responses. Once you hit 80%, you're actually back to 0. You have not made a difference on your TripAdvisor score. And if you went above 80, you're actually damaging your score. So I personally believe this is because the review space is like social media. You don't want to wear out your welcome. You don't want to be the brand that's, too noisy or, too involved. But you also don't want to be negligent. You don't want to never respond because now it looks like you don't care. So you need to find that happy medium. The rule of thumb that I would provide is you want to respond to all negatives, so anything 3 stars or lower. You want to respond to all reviews that have a question, and you want to respond to several positives. So we're going to quickly go through the highlights of each of those 3 types of reviews. In my book, I have 28 different specific strategies that I use, and we're going to talk about the most impactful ones here. So a couple general strategies. You do not want templates, ever. Like, think about this. This is a public space. In an email where you're sending the same email to this person and this person and this person, person A doesn't know what you sent to person B, so it's okay to send a template. When it's public, you can't do that because everyone can see now that you sent the same thing to every single person and it doesn't look genuine. So you have to make every reply unique and tailored to the situation. You also always want to try to take the conversation off the platform. So, saying, hey, we'd love to help you. Please email us here and we can look into this further, that type of thing. Be consistent with the contact that you use. So always use the same email or say, direct message us or something like that, but be consistent with that piece. Okay, so let's talk about responding to negative reviews. This is where it gets really fun. So I'll give you 2 tips. The first is purposeful use of negative and positive words. When you are responding to a negative review, you want to mirror what is being said. That's to show that you're actually listening. So if someone says, I had a horrible experience, a direct mirror of that would be saying, we're sorry that you had a horrible experience. However, you can, instead of reinforcing the word horrible, you can omit that. So right here, we're sorry you had a horrible experience with our company. We're going to mirror that, but strategically change those overly negative words. We're going to say, we're sorry that the experience you had at work wasn't what you expected. So you're still showing that you're listening, you're still validating them, but you're not overemphasizing the things that they have overemphasized. Another one is discrediting negative claims. So it's the art of diffusing the influence of a negative review. So I'll tell you a quick story. So we had someone interview at Maloof for the reputation team, and they had direct experience responding to reviews, to Glassdoor reviews. And I thought, oh, this is awesome. This person has very applicable experience. They responded to these Google reviews for a dentist office. And so I asked this person, so tell me about a time when you had to, deal with a negative review. How did you react? And this person went on to tell me, oh, there was this one time someone wrote a negative review and said the dentist threw something across the room. I'm like, holy cow, that's actually like a big deal. Like, can you imagine? You're sitting in the dentist chair looking up at the tiles and whew, something goes across. Crazy. I can't even think of that actually happening in real life. So I asked this person, so is that what happened? And they said, well, no, the dentist didn't throw something across the room, but that's what the review said. Okay, so how did you reply? Well, we were super apologetic. We said, oh, we'll give you free teeth cleanings. We'll make sure you get first pick on the appointments, blah, 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 all this stuff. We just want to make them happy. Okay, so if you were to respond that way, if you were to read that review then with that reply, what would be your perception? Did the dentist throw something across the room? Because you didn't address it, now you've passively agreed with it, and it is now truth. Perception is reality. You have to confront those things and set the record straight. So how do you do that? You don't want to be a jerk, right? Because remember, you're telling this person, hey, the dentist didn't throw anything across the room, but your target audience, everyone else, you want to make sure they feel good about your reply. So how do you do that? Well, here's an example. So let's say you get a negative review of your company. It says, they fired me for no reason. So here's a reply. We're sorry that you feel your termination was for no reason. It's a very passive way of saying it happened, right? No, and this is where you discredit the claim by providing truth. Know that causes for separation only include documented underperformance and documented breaches of our company code of conduct. If you'd like to discuss the situation specifically, email us at hr@amazingcompany. We're happy to help. So right there, we have said that they did not get hired for no reason, but we also didn't go into a whole bunch of personal stuff about, well, you did this and that's why you're fired, right? That's not the place. You don't want your target audience to feel like that's how they're going to get treated if they work for you. You want to be respectful, but you're also saying, hey, let's work through this. Contact us here and let's continue the dialogue. So any thoughts or questions here? Has anyone had any crazy situations they've wondered how to respond to? Okay, well, if you do, we can chat after. Okay, so responding to positive reviews. Don't just say thank you. It's going to seem disingenuous. You still want to mirror the message, but you also don't want to respond to the all-star reviews. I would say an all-star review is one that's very detailed. Maybe it has a photo of your office. It's like just this amazing review, and you're like, yes, we got this awesome review. Let it shine on its own. Remember the relationship between the star ratings going up, and then if you get too close to 5, it goes back down. You don't want that individual review to be tainted or to look like maybe it was manipulated by, responding, oh, this just came in an hour ago. I got to show I'm listening. Like, oh yeah, thanks. This is great. Awesome review. Just let it have its impact. The ones that are perfect to respond to are short, but also specific, that allow you a chance to mirror the message. So something like, I like working here. The benefit package is great. They have great health insurance. You can respond to that and say, thanks for providing your feedback. We're glad that you like the health insurance at Maloof. Thanks for your contribution. That's a good review to mirror. Another thing is I would also recommend responding to the most recent ones, because most often you can filter reviews by recency, and so your reply will be viewed for longer. Okay, so responding to inquisitive reviews or a review of any star rating that has a question. You always want to respond to those reviews and address the concern directly. Just like the dentist throwing something across the room, if there's ever a question posed, it's your responsibility as the moderator of that online conversation to set the record straight. So answer the questions that people have. And if there's an unanswered question too, you almost want to anticipate kind of the unasked question or the untold need. Maybe someone's asking like, how do I apply? You say, this is where you apply, and here's a list of all the jobs that are available today. You kind of went one step further of what they may need. Okay, this is the one that gets me the most excited. Learn from your reviews. So now you've set up your profile, you're asking for reviews, you're responding to reviews. People are like, oh, this company is great. They actually care about what's happening. Now you get to use that feedback to make real positive change in your organization. So you want to do some research. The first analysis that I would do is some competitive comparisons. So if you're doing this manually, just open up an Excel sheet, list yourself and some of your other competitors that you share talent in the same labor pool, and go list the star ratings and number of reviews that you have against your comparisons or your competition, and you can just sum that up and pretty much see how you rank. That's really the perception that your job seekers and your customers and investors are having of you. Now you know because you went and ran the numbers. That also can act as a baseline for your goals of enhancing your profile and growing your audience. A lot of the employer profiles also have some analysis that you can get just really easy from logging in. So like this is a screenshot from Glassdoor. They give you the top 5 companies that your profile viewers are also looking at. So you can see, oh, people that are looking at my profile are also thinking about these companies. You can see the job titles of people, the top 5 that are looking at your profile, and locations. So that can be helpful as well. Another type of analysis you can do with your reviews is a review text analysis. This is the one that's, I think, the most fun. So a lot of the profiles sites will let you just export all your reviews, put them in Excel, and you can go through and read them all. And what I like to do is tag mentions. So if a review mentions vacation, I'm going to tag that as PTO. If another review mentions bereavement leave, I'm going to tag that as PTO. If another review mentions a different type of leave, then I'm also going to tag that as PTO. Now, if it's a positive association, I'll just highlight the whole row green, and if it's a negative, I'll highlight it red. And as you go through reading the reviews, tagging mentions, basically by the end, you've created a ranking of everything that people are saying about you, both positive and negative. That is a very specific, existence of your perception online. You can see what's most important to your employees on both the good side and the bad side. You see your strengths and you see your weaknesses. Now, at that point, you can reverse engineer content, which is super cool. Oh, you can also, there are services that will do this kind of stuff for you if you don't have the time or capacity to do that. One company here locally is called InMoment. It's a little on the more expensive side, but it's very reliable and robust. So now that you have all this information, you know what you're good at and what you're not good at based on the perceptions of what's being shared through your reviews. You can use that information to take action. The first one is reverse engineering your content on your listing. So I'll go back to selling product as an example. Has anyone ever seen a reading pillow? You know, it's kind of got the back and the arms and it sits behind you. You can read your awesome book. We launched a reading pillow on Amazon and it was doing awesome. You know, we were selling it. It got up to 4.4 stars and then it slowly started going down. It went to 4.3, it went to 4.2, sales cut in half, just like we talked about in that example. And that just triggered a full audit of the listing to know what people are saying about the product. Is there something wrong? What we found was people were having mixed expectations about the size of the pillow. We didn't have dimensions of the shape. And so what did we do? We added a new image that had the specific mention, or the dimensions of the top, side, and the arms. And that's all we did. The reviews self-corrected and went back up to 4.3, and that pillow went on to become the #1 best-selling pillow on Amazon. Now, if you know market share of e-commerce, Amazon controls about 50% of all online sales. So if you're #1 on Amazon, you're pretty much #1 on the internet. So the magic behind that is we didn't make any material changes to the pillow. All we did was we adjusted our messaging. There may be nothing wrong with your employer situation, but your messaging could just be creating misaligned expectations. So really what it is expectation management. And if you know that you have that list of what people are saying about you in the reviews, you know what the expectations are. You know what you're good at. You know what you're weak at. So now you are armed to talk about what you're good at. Now on Amazon, or excuse me, on Glassdoor, there's a section on our profile called Why Work For Us, and it has a leadership tab, culture, environment, values, and foundation. I didn't go to Sam, our CEO, one day and just say, hey, I just want to put these 5 tabs on there. It'd be great. Those were the themes that came out of our reviews. Now, as people read those and they're looking at our profile, if a job seeker feels like they connect with those things, then they're already more aligned with us as an organization. Now, we're attracting people who are innately more likely to be a good fit for our company because we know what we're good at, we've gone through and we've measured it, and now we're marketing according to those known strengths. Another way that you can take action is take similar actions just internally only. For example, Maloof has a suggestion board or a suggestion box. People can submit suggestions anonymously and then we post replies publicly, meaning internally. It's the same function as getting a review and responding on Glassdoor, but it's just inside the company. That's another avenue where you can get feedback. You can also run employee engagement surveys. That would also function like collecting reviews. The Inc. Best Place to Work contest is one that we use. One thing that's interesting about that Has anyone ever done an employee engagement survey for your company? Some have. Okay, so you have all this data about what people like and don't like. The difference between that data set and your review data set is which one's public and which one's private. The reviews are public, so public perceptions are shaped around that content because it's available, and the employee engagement survey is private, and so maybe it provides insights, but perceptions are not being formed around that information. It's kind of like a star rating compared to a net promoter score. A net promoter score is just an internal metric of satisfaction, but if people don't see it, it's not influencing how they view an organization. So I do not like net promoter scores. I like star ratings because it's out there and people are actually looking at it and it's shaping people's opinions. Okay, so you do want to actually use this information that you're getting in your reviews, your suggestion box, your employee engagement survey. You want to address those deficiencies. You want to protect your cultural competitive advantages, and that's going to just start a cycle of increased trust among your employees. If you go out and say, hey, we're going to collect all these reviews, and then you never respond to them, you never address concerns that are coming up, well, you're actually lowering trust and probably making your employees quieter, which is not a good thing. So you have to commit to taking action with the feedback that you're getting. Okay, so the very last action item, this one's really short. How do you broadcast your review content? Basically, you want to market with that feedback. On Facebook, if you were to run a Facebook ad with a review, as the content, you're actually going to get 4 times the click-through rates as any other marketing slogan or content that you could put in there yourself as a company. Just like people trust reviews way more than they trust people, you're supercharging your advertising from your employer brand standpoint if you use reviews. So here's some do's and don'ts. You do want to refer job seekers to your profiles. Let them go there. Make sure that you're all up to date. You have all the information good. You do, if you win a very specific award, take pride in that and definitely broadcast it. And you do want to encourage employees to share employer reviews and other things on their social media. What you don't want to do is quote stats. So, for example, I saw a billboard of a company that said, 98% of our employees like working here. How is that for a catchy marketing slogan? Well, if I was an employee of that company, I would feel like I was the vehicle that was being used to send a company's message. The other thing that's not good about that billboard is that 89% number or 98% number could change. And then all of a sudden your billboard is not accurate. So you don't want to make quotes about star ratings or recommendation percentages in marketing materials. The same would go for a CEO approval rate. And don't overshare. Let people just find it. Send them to the profiles. If someone asks, what's it like to work here? Well, check us out on Glassdoor and see for yourself. So here's a few examples of how Maloof does this. So here's our career page. You'll notice there is a star rating there. This is an exception to the rule because it's a live widget from Glassdoor, so the number updates. So if the rating does change, it stays accurate. So that would be pretty much the only exception. Here's a social media post of when we got the Best Place to Work award. Here's our career cards. It says, if you want to join our team, follow us on our profiles. And then at a career fair, we've got on our posters some of the awards and an invitation to go read about us on our profiles. So if you'd like to keep up with Maloof and see what we're up to, I would say follow us on our profiles. Be one of the people in the public that is judging us and form your own perception about Maloof. And then it would be disingenuous of me, being a review guy, to not ask for feedback. So if you open your app and you go to this session, you can click and leave a review and leave some feedback. I just really want to hear what you have to say. And if you'd like to connect, there's a couple points right there. So thanks, everybody. Any questions?
So we're a pretty small company.
Okay.
We have under 50 employees, and we've been looking into employer branding and the profile pages like in LinkedIn and everything. And I'm
just curious, what are your thoughts about the benefit of doing like the standard free, you know, employee profile page, I'm sorry, employer profile page, versus like the $10,000 a year,
Yeah.
you know, where you can have more customization in like Indeed, Glassdoor, LinkedIn?
Totally. So the question is it worth partnering with some of these employer profiles to have that extra content? So on Glassdoor, we are partnered. We pay $11,000 a year for that one. It's worth it to us because we've built our brand up now, and you know, there's more pieces to it, like you get the job slot, sponsorships and stuff. I would say in the beginning, it's probably not worth it. You're still eligible to win all the awards without partnering. So like Glassdoor's Best Place to Work list, Comparably does Best Place to Work awards. You're still eligible for all of that. And that's probably the biggest value add you can get, is if you get good enough to win an award, that's like the big win. So I would probably say no until you have a very robust profile and maybe you want to take it to the next level. So, great question. Anyone else? In the back?
Yeah, so if you have a company that, you know, hasn't been responding to reviews or, you know, did but was inconsistent, do you recommend just starting moving forward? Is there a certain amount of time, you know, to look at going back and responding? How would you handle that?
Totally. So for e-commerce, I would just stay where you are and go forward because it's kind of a little different piece. But for employer review sites, Glassdoor actually recommends that you go back all the way to the beginning and just get caught up. So just do a one-time catch-up. Those older reviews are going to look slightly weird in the sense that maybe you have a 2-year-old review, but your timestamp is today. That looks a little funny, but it at least shows like, hey, now they're getting it going forward, like they're catching up, right? And you want to just stay committed going forward. So we try to respond to our reviews generally within 24 hours, but on the review sites, sometimes maybe it's a day or two. So you just want to be fairly timely. But yeah, great question. Up here?
When you ask for your employees to leave reviews, do you focus on one site or do you kind of rotate that? Like Glassdoor is doing well, let's get Indeed beefed up a little more. Like how do you kind of manage all of those sites?
Yeah, so at this point in Maloof's strategy, we do all of them. And what we've done is we've taken our entire employee pool and we've just created like a set of rules. So like Indeed, you can only review once. So we ask people, once they've hit about 6 months, we put them in a pool. Once we get 10 people that haven't left a review, it triggers a review request. So we've kept it anonymous by sending the same request to 10 people, but we know we can only do one request, so we want to keep it to that 6-month range. For Glassdoor and Comparably, for example, we can ask on a rotation. So, and this is where our analytics team is really helpful. They've created an algorithm in Excel where it will just make someone eligible again to be included after 13 months. So it's a random grab of that list of employees. If you're just trying to get started and wondering where you should go, I would definitely prioritize Glassdoor and Indeed first. Focus on those two. Once they're going good, you can expand from there. The likelihood of getting an organic review on one of the smaller sites like Comparably or In Her Site is pretty low. So there's less worry about one of those pages just being created without you knowing. But I would check for that every so often. But yeah, I would say, you know, maybe split your employee group in I don't know, like say 8, and do basically one request a quarter and say, you know, 1/8 a Glassdoor request, 1/8 an Indeed request, and then do like quarter by quarter until 1 year has passed. And now everyone's had the Indeed request, everyone's had the Glassdoor request. Year 2, you're just repeating the Glassdoor requests again. So maybe that's one approach. So great question. Anybody else? Okay, well, thanks for coming, guys.